This is Larry Jordan, the host of the Digital Production Buzz. The following interview is an excerpt from a recent program. To hear the entire program, visit digitalproductionbuzz.com. Oliver Hollis-Leick is a trained actor that has specialized in motion capture for the last 13 years. He's played James Bond, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain Scarlet, and hundreds of other characters. He co-founded the Mocap Vaults to train a new generation of motion capture performers and filmmakers. Hello, Oliver. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening.
I should mention before we get started that we are talking with you live in the UK at something like 2 o'clock in the morning, and we'll find out the reason why you're still awake at 2 o'clock in the morning in just a couple of minutes. But first, Oliver, how would you define mocap?
Motion capture is essentially the process of recording human movement in 3 dimensions in simple form.
Well, how is it done?
Well, there are a variety of methods you can use, but the most common way is to use a studio full of these optical cameras that focus down into a stage, which is known as the volume, and that's where the actor will perform. And the actor wears all of these different reflective markers, and light projected from the camera bounces off the reflective markers into the cameras again, and is then kind of put together by the system to create a 3D model.
Which makes me realize that we're not really interested in seeing what the actor looks like. What we're doing is capturing the movements of the actor. So the fact that it looks garish is not important because it's capturing the markers that is important. True statement?
Exactly, yeah, absolutely.
Well, so this gets me to the first really hard question. What is it that makes mocap so challenging for a performer? Nobody cares what you look like. Nobody sees your face. You're sitting in front of a green screen. I mean, what makes it hard?
The hardest thing about motion capture is the kind of rawness of it. On a movie set, you've got costume, props, other actors around you. You know exactly where the camera is, and you know what kind of size of shot it is, and you can just perform. In motion capture, you have a bare warehouse-like set with no props, no costumes. You're wearing a Lycra suit, no matter what kind of character you're playing. Sometimes you have no other actors in the room, and you don't necessarily even know where the camera is.
Well, now wait a minute. This is a little bit different than...
This is what every actor loves.
Well, I was just thinking, Andy Serkis did Gollum for The Lord of the Rings, and they were shooting him on location. You're saying mocap is not an on-location event?
It is actually an on-location event, but it's rarely done that way because of the complications that are kind of introduced to doing that. Because motion capture works on reflected light, any kind of interference from studio lights or kind of daylight can pose quite a problem. Not to mention the fact that you then have to kind of visually remove that performer from the shot using VFX anyway.
So aside from the fact that it's way too late at night, and clearly no sane person should be up at this hour, what is it that got you interested in mocap in the first place? I mean, how do you express yourself as an actor?
Like many people, I kind of, mocap came across me rather than me coming across it. A friend of mine had already been doing it for a couple of years, and he said they were looking for an extra guy, and would I be interested in auditioning? And that's how I discovered it. I got my first role in a video game 13 years ago, and it was such an enjoyable experience that I kind of looked into it more and more and found myself doing it more and more.
Okay, wait a minute. You're wearing a Lycra suit, you're covered with white dots, you're in a big warehouse under bizarre lights, and it's an enjoyable experience? What's wrong with this picture?
Yeah, well, I'm just that kind of guy, I guess.
Glutton for punishment.
Go ahead.
Now, when you were doing the video game, I know you've done a lot of other movies, but when you're doing the video game, are you actually vocalizing? Are you actually saying lines and words while you're doing the mocap?
It depends, actually. I mean, certainly in the earlier days, they would have an A-list celebrity record the lines in advance, and then when I turned up on set, I would actually be acting along to their lines.
What about what about the video game? Were you an actual character in the video game, or were you doubling for another actor?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I'd be doubling for other actors if that was the case, but now in the last kind of 5-6 years, I've had my head scanned several times. They've created a digital version of me. And actually, I was walking through the Underground a few years ago, and saw a huge poster for a new Alien game with my head on it. And I didn't even know that they'd done this. I just suddenly was looking at myself on this poster.
And of course you took a selfie.
Of course I did, yeah.
What was it that got you interested in this in the first place? I know you said that Mocap found you, but what is it that caught your fancy?
Motion capture is probably the purest form of acting you can get because it's based entirely on imagination. So it's like going back to the days of childhood when you just say, today I'm going to be this creature or this character, and I'm in this place, kind of today I'm on a starship, or today I'm in the jungle. And you can just create that there and then. And the special thing about it is I could say, well, what if this is happening and maybe, you know, the dinosaur comes in from this direction, or, you know, there's this kind of spaceship flies in at this point. The animators can then go away and take that creative input and introduce it into the project. You couldn't do that on a film set.
Do you sometimes play creatures, or is it pretty much people?
I've played Dobby from Harry Potter. I've played six-legged creatures. I did some of those for John Carter on Mars. I've played dragons, ogres, werewolves.
So obviously you have to be somewhat athletic and be able to contort your body into these kinds of figures?
Mm-hmm. It's incredibly tiring work, actually. If you imagine being down in a squat position like Andy Serkis was for Gollum,
right,
and doing that day after day after day after day, it does get to you.
Yeah. Well, I can see that you're in good shape, and you better be in good shape to do what you do.
I won't be in the morning, that's for sure.
What is it? What type of actors are good at mocap? And the flip side, which I'm going to ask you next, is if you're a filmmaker casting an actor for mocap, what do you look for?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because at the moment, there's definitely a kind of a short-sightedness in the industry. Actors are generally cast on their voice for games and for films, even with motion capture. Yeah. And a lot of the time, physicality is never even present during the audition. It's based on voice, the old traditional way of casting video game actors. But then you get that person in the studio and you realize they have no fluidity, no movement. They can't adapt their body. In fact, when they're put in a lycra suit and they've got a bunch of nerdy guys looking at them, they can get pretty tense. So you then have to combat that. So it's really important to look for somebody who's versatile, who is happy to improvise, and somebody who will commit themselves to the role 100%.
So how should a filmmaker run a casting session for a mocap actor?
I would say, first of all, if you're going to have them playing a character or someone who doesn't look like them, don't get them coming in wearing clothes like this, because that kind of hides the motion, especially if it's long, flowing kind of dresses or whatever. You want to see the outline of a person, the shape of them. You're looking for whether there's tension in their body or whether they can relax in a strange environment. And get them to try different things, see how versatile they are and how flexible they can be.
Would dancers be good at mocap?
Depends. I mean, dancers are good with their bodies, but not necessarily always trained actors. So, I mean, if they're playing creatures, definitely. Yeah, they understand their own movement in a way that many people don't.
Do you have dance background yourself?
I don't, but I did martial arts and gymnastics, which gave me a kind of body coordination from that. And I did go to drama school where we did do tap dance and ballet and all that kind of stuff.
Somehow I have a hard time equating tap dance and ballet with the Dobby. It's just somehow the pictures don't work the same way. Where's the market? If you've got mocap skills, who's hiring? What type of clients are looking for you?
It's such a broad range now, and it's growing more and more all the time. I mean, at the moment, I work on video games. It's a huge part of my work. But the games could be anything. I've done mobile games, and I've also done AAA games. But movies as well, like Iron Man and Total Recall, those are all done by VFX houses who used motion capture as a part of their pipeline, and they would take the data and animate on top of it till they got it the way they wanted it to look. But there's something really interesting happening now in entertainment, and that is, of course, virtual reality. And it makes me think of perhaps how the public responded to television 80 years ago. someone telling them they had to get this new device in their house that would have images beamed into it, and how maybe reluctant they might have been to that.
Have you had experience
At
with?
first, we're being asked to take these headsets.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary experience.
Have you had much experience
first
in
when
VR?
I put it on, I didn't want to take it off.
Oh, you didn't want to take the VR headset off? It was that immersive?
It's so engrossing. It's so immersive. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, well, it really hasn't hit the world as much as we're talking about it all the time. We're seeing it. I mean, the Oculus Rift is not really shipped yet, and a lot of us have experienced it, but we're not seeing a lot of it. Have you yourself done games in the VR world yet?
I have not, but a colleague of mine did recently. A game we'd already worked on together decided they wanted to do a VR experience, and so he had to do that. But of course, you're not acting to a camera anymore.
Right.
You're acting to a person who will be watching you in the future.
Yeah, it's so new, and you're on the ground floor, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Walk me through a typical day. You've been booked for a gig. It's your first day on set doing mocap. You walk in the door. What's happening next? Go into some detail. What would we see if we were there?
So first thing, I have to be put into the Lycra suit and have to have all of these markers applied to my body in the right places. Then they do a kind of a calibration where they connect those dots up into a skeleton in the system, a skeleton that will stick with me for the rest of the day. Then I will usually be presented with a script for the first time in the project. I won't have seen it before that usually, and I have to learn the lines very quickly. Then we'll do kind of a brief rehearsal, and then we'll just start hitting it shot after shot. Because in mocap, there's no relight, there's no moving the camera. It's ever present, so you just keep going.
Is a director or someone telling you what to do, or are they just saying, do whatever you want?
It's a funny thing because in film, there's a very established infrastructure of how a set works. But in games, you often get an animator who's got a collection of moves they need for their game turn up, and they've never worked with an actor before. And so they're saying, can you lift your left arm a bit higher? Can you kind of tilt your head? And rather than saying, okay, so you're in a dark environment and there's this kind of werewolf hiding and he's going to jump on you, which is the way an actor works, is to be kind of stimulated emotively.
So they're giving you body movements rather than environments.
Often, yeah.
How would you like to be directed in an ideal world from,
the best way? It's kind of give me an idea of where I am, what I'm doing, who's with me, where did I just come from, what's my objective. Those kind of start a thought process that stimulates action.
Well, now it's time to ask you why you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning in London talking to us live as opposed to getting some rest. What's happening?
It took him 4 hours to get out of the Lycra suit.
Exactly, yeah. They just peel it off me at the end of the day.
It's a long shower.
Well, in the morning, I'm actually, in a few hours, I'm flying to Los Angeles. And this weekend, we're holding a huge event at a professional mocap stage there called Just Cause. And we're getting the greatest minds in motion capture together with new and aspiring actors, animators, technicians, and directors to get everybody talking about how to create better performances using motion capture.
Can anybody attend, or is this an invitation-only event?
Yeah. No, absolutely. If you go to our website, there's a variety of different places you can come on, but the observer position on the Sunday means that somebody who's just looking to get more of an idea about how the technology works and how they can get involved, they can come along and see exactly how it works.
Well, the other thing that you do is you train actors to do motion capture work. How do you tell somebody to wear white dots and move around a stage?
Well, there's actually a revolution happening in motion capture thanks to companies like iPiSoft and the software that they're making now. I can take a Kinect camera from an Xbox and I can put it on a tripod in a room with a bunch of actors, and none of them need to put any suits on, no markers. They can just stand in front of this camera and record their performance, and they can see it on screen within minutes on a character.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Is it going to be maybe in another year or so where we won't have to wear the Lycra suits and all the dots and stuff? Everything's done inside camera and software?
Well, it's possible now. The only problem is that optical which is where you wear the markers, is just much more accurate. But as technology advances, there's nothing to stop a markerless motion capture system, from taking over.
Okay, well, it's just, if actors didn't have to wear those Lycra suits, I think they'd feel a lot more comfortable.
Oh, I think that takes the fun out of it.
It's kind of snugs the man parts.
It certainly does. Yeah, it's very cupping.
Yes, it is.
Let's see. What I'm curious about is when you're training actors, is it in movement? Is it in expressing emotions? Is it more like a dance class, or is it more like a discover who you are class? How do you structure the instruction?
It's such a pleasurable class to teach, because what my job is in that room is to take people back to the most kind of basic form of imaginative work. Start saying to people, okay, forget everything that's around you and go into your own world. Now you're a dragon. You've got these wings that you can, or you're a gorilla and you've got to kind of move in a more primitive way, and you're in a jungle and it's raining and you're responding to that, and suddenly you see people get lost in these worlds, and they love it. They really love it.
Yeah, I think you really have to appreciate the actors who do this, like the Andy Serkises, who
Indeed.
It's really extraordinary what they do, and
when you see what people have to work with and what they do with it, it's quite remarkable. What those people do.
Remember the old Bob Zemeckis movie, Polar Express, where he's taking
Oh yeah.
Tom Hanks, for instance. It's the first time he's ever gotten into those Lycra suits with the dots and stuff, and he has to act. And it was still wonderful stuff. Not necessarily a great movie, but the performances were terrific.
Well, as you said,
absolutely, and he played many of the parts.
Yes,
it's an exercise in imagination, and if you've got an active imagination and can express that in movement, then you're more than halfway there in being successful at mocap.
Absolutely, a bold imagination and a kind of freeness of body is a great start.
Sounds like a really fun class.
For people that want,
it is fun.
For people that want to go to this event that you're working on this weekend, what website can they go to?
The and if they click on the training side of things, they go in there and you'll see the Mocap Vault Summit right there, and you just click and book.
For people that can't make the event, do you have training that's available to them online?
Not yet, but that is something we're working on.
That would be.
I'm actually creating a video at the moment, a film, which is called Acting for Video Games, and it explains the whole process and how to go about it.
That would be very
I used to do back when I was an actor. I used to do a lot of video games voiceover work, and of course we didn't have mocap or anything. We just go in and do the voices. But now they're hiring actors not only for their voices, but they're bringing them into the studios and doing the mocap thing. And a lot of those guys, these are A-list actors that's doing this kind of stuff. And once they do it, they don't want to do it again. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
Really, really hard work. So
it is. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
And for people that want to keep track of you, do you have a website separate and distinct from the event? And if so, what website should people go to?
Well, my website is oliverhollis.com, but we also have a Facebook page, the Mocap Vaults, and I have my own one as well under my name.
The main website is the Mocap Vaults, all one word, the M-O-C-A-P Vaults, Mocap Vaults. And Oliver Hollis-Leick is the co-founder of the Mocap Vaults. And Oliver, this has been fun.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Welcome to LA in a week.
Bye-bye.
Or today.
Thanks, man. See ya. Bye.